Hi, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Sibme Coach Replay Show. Today, we have back Alice Shull. She is one of our wonderful Sibme virtual coaches who, in addition to working for Sibme, she also mentors principals on site in Massachusetts. She's coaching mentors in training during their year-long internship to become NAESP nationally certified mentors. And she was a teacher and principal for 42 years. In addition to all of this, she's a part of this mini series on coaching for engagement. So we're going to be breaking down some footage with her today, but in her spare time, in addition to supporting educators in the field, she loves to travel and especially ski, something that you'll never find me doing. I'll sled over here, that will happen, but I can't get on skis. So welcome to the show, Alice.
Thank you so much. I'm so glad to be here.
Yeah. So we're continuing the conversation around student engagement. We're going to do a little deeper focus on a very specific strategy called cold call today. We've got footage of a teacher who's introducing this. But tell me, Alice, what do we mean by cold call and why is it important?
Well, cold call is a great technique to increase engagement. And people's first reaction when we explain what cold call is, oh, are we trying to do a gotcha regarding the students? And not the case at all. So if it's explained to the students and they understand the why of it and the how of it, and the goal of it, then they will understand the benefits of it. So in our classrooms, where, for lack of a better word, I'm going to call it traditional hand raising type of behavior, there is a place for that. But also, if you picture those classrooms, it's often the case where students are going, and they want to respond. But one of the pieces we've already begun to talk about with engagement and processing is that teachers are pressured to get a lot done. So if they call on those students whose hands are up and are pushing to answer the questions, they not only get a statement from 2 or 3 students, but they also can move on to the next question. And they don't have any idea whether or not the other 18 students in the classroom are connected to whatever it is that the teacher had asked, but it allows them to move on. So this cold call is a strategy that allows for taking more time and getting a better read of the class. And basically what it is we explain to the students what it is that we want to do. We want to keep our hands down. I am going to call on a number of different students. I would explain, and you will see in the video, the teacher in the video uses a particular procedure, but there are many procedures to use to decide who you might call on and so forth. But what it does do is it allows many students in the class to participate. It allows the little ones who are reluctant, who are shy,
Right.
who are thinking that they might know the answer, or they really do know the answer and they're excited about it, but they're afraid to say it in front of the class. And when the teacher calls on them, they will come up with some astute insights and responses. And that's not only do they get to participate, but I call it getting to hear their own voice.
Right.
Once we have an opportunity to hear our own voice, we build our confidence in being able to participate in the group activity. And it's very, very powerful. The other piece that we don't necessarily think about that often, but is really important, especially when we're talking about building relationships among and between students and teachers, etc., is that when you're explaining a procedure like this to the students and using it, you are saying to them, I care about you. I care about what you're thinking. I care about what you're saying. And that's another really important piece. If we picture ourselves as adults in a meeting, and we see a facilitator who's wants to, maybe they want to hurry and get something done, they'll call on the people who are the loudest voices or
Mhm.
who can raise their hands the highest.
Mhm.
And we might be sitting there like, oh, I really have something important to say, but never get a chance to say it.
Right.
On the other hand, if they were to use those same procedures with adults, they might find that we can accomplish the same kinds of things we can as we want to accomplish in a classroom.
I love that. And what I love about that care aspect that you just mentioned, so I just recently, I got home yesterday from a conference that was out of state. And so my only thing that I like about flying, because I very much do not like to fly for a number of reasons. I'm not in control. I can't see the front. I mean, all of the reasons. I'm squished in a seat.
In a tube.
Yeah, my ears don't pop very well, but the only good thing is I get to catch up on my reading, which I can do audible books all day, every day. It's a great way to drown out the noise of everything else, but just sit and read is hard for me to do. It always has been. And the plane is the best place. I don't fall asleep when I'm reading. I'm able to just drown everything else out. I got my earplugs in. So anyway, I was just catching up on a professional learning journal all about coaching. And there was an article in there by Jim Knight. You and I were talking about this just before the episode. But one of the things he talked about around coaching for engagement is the very real need for students to feel like they belong. And I think that's exactly what this does. It just not only says, I care about what you say, but you belong here. And so does your voice, which then
Yes.
is amplified when they get to use it. So I absolutely love that. I think it increases the equity in our classrooms. And again, just really communicates that we're a community of learners. We all have something to say. It's all important. And yeah, because I was that one I'd have those eager people. And if I didn't, like, I think I know the right answer, but I'm not as sure as she is. So I'm just going to let her respond to it.
Yeah.
Or I don't want to be called on. I don't feel like sharing my thoughts right now. And so I'm just not going to raise my hand and I won't be called on. As long as I
Right.
still look like I'm paying attention, the teacher won't call on me.
Right.
Right. Because the other thing that we do is we'll call on the kids who need to be like brought back to task. So,
Uh-huh. The gotcha thing. And that's another piece of this is that, s- so, wrapping, going back to the idea of engagement,
mhm.
if every student knows that they might be called upon, they're going to be more likely to be thinking about whatever the question is,
Yes.
whatever their response might be, because they might be called on. And that's a good thing. That's
Mhm.
not a negative.
Right. It's
Anyway.
like I always use the example to kind of give a really good I help people remember what that feels like is, when you would do the reading and we'd start on this row, we go all the way back and
Oh,
forth.
yeah.
And so what
Mhm.
you do is we all know this. We've all been a part of that procedure. You count the paragraphs and you memorize the whole time, just looking at making sure I know how to say all those words,
Uh-huh.
and then someone passes or just keeps reading, and then all of a sudden you're just like caught off guard. I mean, that's awful to feel that. And
That's a
we
great
check
example.
out, we focus just on, okay, what do I need to say,
Yeah.
or how can I get out of this? So
That
yeah.
is a great example. I want to quote Doug Lemov, who does such a great job of explaining what cold call is. And in
Mhm.
his book, TLAC, he has a lot of clips on a CD which show various aspects of cold call and how it works.
Mhm.
But he said, and I love this quote, if cold calls are predictable and students begin to anticipate them, the effect, engaged accountability,
Mhm.
will be universal.
I like that, engaged accountability.
Yeah.
That is a great one. Yeah. Yeah, that's and absolutely. And Doug Lemov definitely shares that very well. And we're going to get to see it in action
Yeah.
today. We're going to break down footage. So today we've got a video that features a high school classroom with a teacher who is introducing this procedure for the first time to her students. So what I love about this is we're going to get to really see a great model of how to break down. We talked about in one of our last episodes the importance of, you know, a good question and a effective procedure that you use and use well and use often. And so
Right.
she's going to get them started with that. So I'm going to pull up this clip, but as I do that, as I share my screen, Alice, what are we going to be looking for in this video clip? What are some good guiding questions for us?
Let's look for the system that the teacher is actually using to call in the students. I was really impressed by it. There are many different systems, but this is one of them. And let's also look for how exactly does the teacher explain this strategy. She speaks with much intentionality, which is a real plus. And finally, how does the teacher ensure that in using this strategy, students feel safe, even though they know they might be called upon, and it's not just a raised hand situation at all.
I love that. Those are some three good things to look for. All right, so I'm going to play the video all the way through. You've also made some comments on this video, so we'll see those scroll along as we go. But I think the key is really listening to this video.
Right.
So let's play it.
Okay, so today I'm going to be showing you guys what's referred to as cold call. This is going to be the method that I'm using to question you guys. Instead of you shouting out answers or raising your hands, this is what we're going to do. So as you see over here, it says teacher will ask a question. So I will ask any question pertaining to our lesson, and I will follow it with saying no hands. So no hands means that as students, you keep your hands down, and I will go over into the board. We have a random number generator here. We're a total of 19. Each one of you has a number in the corner of your desk. When I click generate, the number that comes out, that's the student that it's going to answer. So in this case, number 14 is who? Antonio. So Antonio would answer my question. Now let's say Antonio doesn't know the answer, or he's too shy, anything like that. I don't want you to have that mentality of, well, I don't know, I'm not going to answer. Instead, I want you to think, I can try. So you have options. You can either ask me for a little bit of a hint, or you can say, may I speak to a friend? May I get help from a friend? If you do choose that route.
Okay. So it's a short clip. She's still kind
Yeah.
of going into it a little bit, but I see some really great things in here, Alice. So I'm going to let you break this down a little bit for us.
Okay. Well, for one thing, she's really clear. She really explains the process very, very well. The question about how she's going to call on the students, she's got that little tool, the random number generator. I want one of those. I think that's just great. You could also draw out of a hat if you don't have the technology.
Mm-hmm.
One thing I will say is there's not just one way to think about calling on students. She may know or have some insights into certain students that she wants to give an opportunity to hear their own voices, etc. And so she might intentionally have developed a list in her head of
Mm-hmm.
people she wants to call on. That's another possibility. Um, I I think that, and this is interesting, it's a very short clip, but I think that I got more out of it after I watched it several times.
Mm-hmm.
I was particularly impressed with the fact that she had a visual on her board
Yeah.
about,
Let me make this a little bit larger for us to
yeah,
see. Look at this right here.
yeah,
Let's see if I
look
can
at that.
annotate over
Yeah,
here.
yeah. And that really is a, um, oh,
Look at
I
this
like that.
fancy thing. Look, technology, Alice.
I love
Yes.
that.
I
You know,
didn't notice that until I watch this in full screen, which is, the great thing. Sibme's great to
yeah.
kind of type in as you're watching it small, but I also found I like to do at least my second view full screen so I can kind of see everything in large. But yes, I love that she already had this out here. Teacher will, student will. That was
Yeah.
great.
And I the students can see that, and some kids are really visual learners. And especially when it's a really new procedure, it might help her as well as help them to keep in the uh, using the process effectively and the strategy effectively. And the idea that she said, and I actually wrote this down after I watched it a few times. Um, if they, you, she expressed, you don't need to say, I don't know, I'm not going to answer. Instead, she said, if you don't know the answer, you can try this, this, and this. And I'm sure that, when the video ended, there were probably several more strategies that students could use in order to seek out the answer. So
Yeah.
these kids didn't feel like they were in a situation where I don't think they felt. Let's put it that way. That they were in a situation where they would be uncomfortable. And as a matter of fact, one of the, to kind of think about this possibility with the students, as I just said to you, I don't think they, rather than for sure, I know that they're going to feel psychologically safe, is to ask the students how they feel that that strategy is working for them.
Yeah.
And then the students have an opportunity after it's over to debrief. That's great feedback for the teacher, and it's great feedback back to the students to make them feel, to not make, that's the wrong word, to encourage them, ensure them that they
Create the
can feel
conditions.
comfortable with this process.
Right. And that could be a group discussion, especially if you feel so. And we were just talking about this before the show as well, because I just got off of talking about psychological safety with a group at that conference that I was at, and I talk about it a lot in video and in our role in coaching and being vulnerable, and that we require psychological safety. I've got to reframe failure into, anything new is messy in the beginning, and it's this is a teaching practice, right? It's never perfection. That was something I heard from one of the colleagues that I was at the conference with, and I loved it. She said, yoga is considered a practice because you never go and it's perfect every single time. You're just practicing. And if we reframe our work to, I'm going to practice this strategy instead of I'm going to do it, what would that do for our mindset, which I know you and I are going to talk about in the future. But
yeah,
one thing that's a key ingredient that I think you hinted to, and that she definitely does a good job of, is creates that psychological safety, which is that climate or that belief that the people around me are going to give me the benefit of the doubt, even if I don't know the answer, or I've got it wrong, or I'm confident, any of those things. I can stick my neck out there, and I'm not going to face ridicule or judgment by those around me. And as a teacher, we have to cultivate that in our own classroom. And I think this is a really great way of doing that, giving them this additional, here's what you do when you respond that to the, when you don't know, because sometimes we don't quite know yet. And I think an exit ticket could be a great way to say, okay, we tried. I did that anytime I had anything new in my classroom. I would, tell me how you felt it went. And so kids were really honest with that. Like, it did not work for me, or I like where you're heading, Miss Camp, but today was a flop. That was very much one of the exit ticket responses I got from one of my kids.
About the actual process.
Yeah.
Which allows them to feel empowered. They're part of this.
They're part of it, right? Yeah. It's they are co-creators in their own learning experience. So, which again, engagement opens the door for that.
Absolutely.
And really allows us to do
it. What I'd love to see, let's say that I happen to be coaching this teacher, and we're using video in this way. What I would love to see now is the actual process in action in some classes, and maybe in more than one video, and have the teacher also, in all the videos that they produce, they have an opportunity to reflect on their own work and write questions, ideas, bright spots, etc., as they watch the video. But it would also help them break it down and understand what are the very specific pieces that worked,
Mhm.
what I might want to try next time,
Mhm.
and so forth.
Yeah.
So that I would love to see.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I think that would be the very next thing I'd be asking. So how'd it go? Right? How do you feel it went? What information do you have from your students on how they felt it went? What would you do differently? But to have them record it. And I love the idea, especially when we're working with routines and procedures and even rigor, of having teachers like one record and then record again, middle of the week or at the end of this week. And we're going to watch both of those very short clips just to see the difference, because
Comparing.
sometimes it's hard for us to take a moment to celebrate our progress. And that's really important, for everybody to have a moment to just
Agree.
get to
Right.
celebrate and not just continue pushing forward. So
That's right, because we do tend as teachers to look at what we need to do more,
yeah.
not at what we
It's
just
never enough. One of my
accomplished.
favorite authors, Brene Brown, talks a lot about, and it's not her work. She quotes someone else, and I can't remember their name, but scarcity, right? We live in a world of scarcity where, she has a great analogy. My alarm goes off and my feet hit the ground, and I don't immediately come from a place of abundance thinking, wow, I got plenty of sleep and I've got this time in the world to, make a great breakfast. It's usually our feet hit the ground and it's, I overslept, I didn't get enough sleep, I've got a million things to do. And that just leaks into everything else. Same with teachers. I think teachers, we have a lot of accountability. Most of us are some level of a perfectionist, and enough is never enough.
teachers.
Ethically, enough isn't enough for our students, right? But I think as coaches, no matter what we're focusing on, we really have to help them realize that they are exactly where they need to be, and that this is a process and a practice, and we need to celebrate along the way.
Absolutely. And teachers are notorious for being hard on themselves, and principals too.
Absolutely. Oh, especially when videos in the play of things. So I would have loved to see what the teacher thought about her own introduction to this process as well, within that.
Yeah.
So so Alice, then what is the how do you see video? We talked about like some additional things, but overall, anything else around using video to continue to support this teacher in increasing student engagement, utilizing this cold call strategy? What else would you say?
One of the things, and I did add it in my comments, is would you consider asking the why, or explaining the why to the students, why she's using it? I think in many respects, again, I'm going to make an assumption that they probably understand some of that, but I think it's important to, for students, again, it empowers them. How do you explain the why? What are the benefits of using this strategy? And again, it circles all the way around to asking the students at the end how the strategy is working for them. So I think that's a real advantage. That one can get, and through video, one can look at what she did present and add another piece, even in another video. Let's just spend a session on the why of cold call. And that would be very interesting. And use cold call intentionally as you're talking about the why of cold call. Very
absolutely. Yeah, and you have to start with why. Even with students, as adults, we need to know why. If I'm in a professional development session, and even though I know why, like the big why of why we're all here, why we're all educators, yes, I get it. But I want to know a little bit of how is this based in research? How does this connect to other things? Why, before we get into the how and the what it looks like. And she kind of dove right into, if we played that first clip back, we'd hear her saying, instead of everybody raising their hand and shouting out, I'm going to say no hands. And so we're right into the how. Simon Sinek I love the golden circle, to start with why before you get how and what. So
perfect. The other thing I think I would also perhaps use video for is to help me understand the amount of informal assessment that is accomplished by using this procedure. And it would be informal assessment of the procedure itself, which we've already talked about, but also of what is accomplished and whatever the goals are or expectations for the lesson itself. That would be a fun video. I say fun because I love to analyze these videos and talk with teachers about them. There's so much more in them than we realize when we define what those look-fors are.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. And it's easy to get bogged down in the, I can replay and replay and replay this over and over again, or there's all this stuff coming at me. But yeah, I think, having the teacher bring in, if there were any written responses, bring in the other artifacts to that conversation with the video, and look at how we can kind of look at how they all marry together nicely. I love that. Well, Alice, this was a great introduction to this cold call strategy, which is, again, a really wonderful one for us to be able to use right away within our classrooms or with the teachers that we're coaching. And I love all of your insight around using video to continue to support this teacher and look at engagement, student engagement overall. So thanks again for joining us today.
It was my pleasure.
Audience, tune in as usual next week for another episode of the Sibme Coach Replay Show.